The opinions expressed are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the official positions of the sponsors, advertisers, or presenters. Advertising does not imply endorsement by the sponsors and presenters.
Hey guys, and welcome back to this week's episode of the Lighting Controls Podcast. We have another fantastic guest for you in another amazing episode. But before we jump into everything, I just need to take a minute to remind everyone that today's episode is presented by the LCA, the Lighting Controls Association.
And it's financially supported by the National Association of Innovative Lighting Distributors, or NAILD. Also, check out our website, whether you've seen it before or not. We always have our episodes on there. We have a great news feed for industry news. Check out our merch store if you want to buy some merch and support the podcast. But anyways, so today we've got a special guest. We've got Michael M.J. Johnson from Global Lighting Controls. MJ, do you mind just giving us a quick breakdown on who you are and what you do?
Yeah, absolutely. And by the way, guys, I really enjoy the podcast. So, as they said, my name is Michael Johnson, but everybody in the industry knows me as MJ. I got kind of renamed that back in the early 2000s when I first joined Lighting Control and Design before it was acquired by Acuity Brands. And then I've been around with several companies. Helped the German occupancy sensor company BEG come into the States. I've been with Kasambi for a while. And now we've started a new company in 2019, Global Lighting Controls, with my two partners, Ward Christensen and Rob Ruth. And the idea of our company was to help European companies that are in the lighting industry, lighting fixture manufacturers, lighting control manufacturers, enter our market, because we saw that there was a lot of good technology, a lot of good products in Europe, but there was such a reluctance to come into the U.S. for various reasons. Some of it because of our voltage differences, some of it's fear of UL testing, some of it's just fear of how we do business here in the U.S. in the lighting industry, our rep networks and things of that nature. So we've got quite a few companies now that we work with that we're helping, and we're providing all their sales and marketing services here.
Well, awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us. I mean, I think what's really interesting about your business model here, like you said, is, there's all of this European technology that North America doesn't take advantage of. And as a result, there is a reluctance for them to come out over to us. But at the same time, there's a reluctance for people to use that technology. And so there seems to be sort of a stalemate between the two. And we end up with the system that we have right now, which is adopting 0 to 10 volt and, all other kinds of proprietary protocols to accomplish what is already easily accomplished overseas.
Absolutely. And we're seeing that, and we're big proponents on open standards, open protocols. There's a logical reason why we're still using 0 to 10 volt here, and we're still so dependent on proprietary controls. But it's also at the same time seems kind of silly that we're using, LED lighting, solid state lighting, digital lighting, and we're trying to control it with a 20th century analog signal. It just seems a little backwards, especially with what we're doing everywhere else in the world, and with all the other technology, smartphones and computers and everything else in our lives, that we're still doing it this old way. One of the things that we really picked up on as we started working with European companies was the whole style of controls and really what we call ecosystem controls. And Dolly's probably the most known example of that, where any manufacturer can create a Dolly device, especially the Dolly 2 standard. And it's guaranteed that if you buy components from all sorts of different manufacturers, you can bring them together and create a comprehensive system to do exactly what you want, and everything communicates. There's no issues. And it's a very popular way of doing it in Europe, and obviously not so popular here. And again, it's for several reasons, because of the size of our country, and we developed this whole rep network system, but also because of some of the dominant manufacturers that had proprietary systems and wanted to stick with that, and it's made the whole industry kind of not wanting to move in that kind of logical direction.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so I think the challenge that you have is really as a disruptor to the industry in North America because of the fact that you're coming in with this different perspective, this different format. And so I'm curious to hear, if you've had success stories so far with this model.
Absolutely. And, a couple things is it's a great message to specifiers, to especially end users, to give them
Hmm.
confidence when you say, hey, we always get the question, and I've gotten this question every company I work with. I'm selling them a major system, and they say, oh, what happens in 5 years if you go out of business? Am I going to be left holding the bag? Who's going to support this system? Can I get replacement parts? When you're talking something that's based on an open standard like Dolly, and it's an ecosystem type product where you can buy different parts and pieces from any manufacturer, that gives them a level of confidence that, hey, I'm not going to be holding the bag. There is going to be parts. There is longevity to this system. And, it gives them confidence in what you're selling them. And it doesn't stifle competition at all. In fact, it enhances competition because it makes all these different manufacturers that make these components really step up as far as R&D and the innovation that they're putting into the products, new features, and their customer service, quite frankly, because they're not able to just lock them in with a proprietary system or device. They have to step up, and it makes the market better.
Well, and I'm feeling the other manufacturers tapping on my shoulder and saying, "Hey, wait a second." Um, and there is an argument to be made that if you don't have a manufacturer in charge of the entire system, then who's responsible when something goes wrong?
Excellent point. And that is one of the things, in the commercial lighting industry in Europe, and we have in the theatrical industry here, as Ron definitely knows, we have integrators that are responsible for these projects that bring all these parts and pieces together.
Right.
One of the things that we had to do at Global Lighting Controls, we had a lot of manufacturers early that signed up with us that made control components, made sensors or some kind of wireless dimmer or wall stations, but they didn't make a complete system. So we
Hmm.
had to kind of think out of the box and think, all right, how are we going to sell their products, help them sell their products, sell them through the rep networks, because we wanted to go through specification, but do it in a way that was familiar to the US system. And so we had to create, just to move these products, we created a different brand. It's called Energio Controls, where we decided, okay, we're going to take responsibility for this. So we kind of, in fact, became the integrator. We brought in all these devices from our partner manufacturers. It's all wireless, it's all Bluetooth and mesh network based. And we packaged it together and we decided, okay, the only way to do this is to make it familiar to those reps. They're used to buying from a single manufacturer, having a single point of contact. You could never expect a rep to go to different manufacturers and try and coordinate shipping and all the finger pointing you would get on whose fault is it if something doesn't work. So we decided to step up and we created this Energio Controls, where we act just like any other controls manufacturer would here in the US. We contract the reps, we quote the projects, we do the takeoffs, the POs come to us. We've made it where everything ships from a single location, a complete system, and we provide all the startup and support. So there's definitely a business model there that could be adopted here in the US. It doesn't have to be exactly like they do it in Europe. We're not trying to disrupt, their already established sales network. We're trying to create something that fits into it and still allows us to have open standards and these ecosystem type products.
And that's really interesting to hear because I feel as though a lot of disruptors do try to come in and shake up the sales model as well as the technology model. So, the fact that you're following the sales model, you're just using it in a way that allows you to change the hardware and software, essentially.
Yeah, it was one of the reasons we started Global Lighting Controls was exactly that. Is we've seen so many non-US companies, non-North American companies coming in
Yep.
and doing just what you said. Oh, we're going to sell around distribution, or we're not going to go through the rep agencies, or and try and do it the same way they do in Europe. And it's
Hmm.
we all know it doesn't work, and that's one of the things we've had to teach all of our partner companies that are coming in from Europe is that no, but it has to be this. We are not going to disrupt the sales model that's established. You're not going to get around it. Everybody, you think you're the first ones that are presenting this idea here. You're
Right.
not. It doesn't work. And that's part of what our service is convincing that
Right.
it takes somebody that knows the American system to sell to Americans here.
Right. And I would agree with that statement. I think, we do have a unique way that things are done, and we buck very quickly people that try to change that. And I think the
Mm-hmm.
sales is one of those ways. I think contractor functionality and the way specifications are broken up and siloed is another way. And so we see a lot of attempt to disrupt that, but we don't see a lot of success to disrupt that.
Not a lot of longevity to those companies that do that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, so,
But so no, but it's fascinating because like you said in theatrical, and I think Ron can attest to this much better than I can from personal experience. But having that integrator dealer relationship really allows you to have somebody holding the hands of everybody on the contracting side to make sure that the project's done in a way it's very similar to DMX. DMX is
yeah.
also an open standard, and you need to have an integrator if your DMX system is more complex than just a touch screen connected to a single fixture. And even there, you might need an integrator.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. You need somebody, in charge, and the buck has to stop there with that person. It can't be
Yep.
that finger pointing or you need to call this manufacturer. It has to stop there.
Mm-hmm. And so, Ron, I'm curious what your perspective is on this mentality. Already having operated this way with DMX, considering Dolly as another option.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's always been out there. The problem is, as you know, is just in North America, it's never really taken off, right? No matter how much people have tried. Um, I'm certainly not opposed to it, right? I mean, Dolly, like DMX, has its own limitations, but the fact that I can grab device A and device B from different manufacturers and put them together in a working system is that's a huge benefit. So there are a lot of benefits to having that sort of ecosystem, but it requires it, right, that selling a system like that in North America would absolutely require some sort of integrator type model, so someone that can do exactly what MJ's doing, right? That can hold
Mm-hmm.
everyone's hand and be there for the reps. Because let's face it, the rep network in North America is not going anywhere anytime fast. And if you want to get your product on a specified job, you have to go through the rep network.
I gotta say, we've been surprised that we haven't already seen competition to what we're doing, and we expect to, because there's a lot of products out there and a lot of platforms out there, especially on the wireless mesh side. Now
Mm-hmm.
where we expect other companies to start following this model, and we've gained some traction on this. Yeah, we've had some resistance, but when you start really presenting the advantages of it and you start taking responsibility, for it, people feel confident in you.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think that also is a really important point that pretty much everybody that we've interviewed echoes at some level is that, the confidence factor and the ability to rely upon whatever it is that you're specifying or utilizing really, really affects and impacts the success of whatever it is that you're using, because of the fact that if you don't stand behind your product, things are going to go awry. If you don't make sure that integration is done appropriately, especially when you have disparate systems. You're talking about how many manufacturers do you have right now under your group?
We have right now we've got 12, and it'll actually be closer to 17 here within a couple weeks. And
Wow.
Wow.
one of the things we always do, none of our manufacturers are the same. None of them are competitors. We're very careful not to take any direct competitors, and what we also try and partner with companies that are very complementary with each other too. We feel that the best market is the one we have right here, and
Right.
and getting our partners to work together, sell to each other. It's been very nice that way, and it's also allowed us to expand um, beyond just lighting and lighting controls as well. We've got a lot of companies now that are bringing a lot of great IoT solutions into play, and so now we're quickly moving in that direction, and it's been nice because we're using the lighting and the lighting controls and promoting it as the IoT backbone for so many other devices, and that's where we really see the industry moving, and where everybody needs to start educating themselves, and it kind of plays into that whole open standard ecosystem mentality as well.
Right, but I mean, in that capacity, I mean, 17 manufacturers, you're essentially your own rep at that point. You have to maintain a knowledge, a database of all of that information and know how they interrelate with each other.
It's
That's
it's challenging.
heavy lift. Yeah.
Yeah, it is, and we try not to call ourselves a rep. I mean, in one sense, that's really what we are, because different than a rep is that we're not in a local market just trying to sell a certain territory. We really act as the sales and marketing department for the companies we partner with. There's even some companies that we will carry a branded card if we're going to make sales calls and things of that nature. Some we've got email addresses for, some of them we manage the websites for them, things of that nature. So, we're technically we represent them, but we're really a little different than what normally in our industry people think of as a rep.
Sure. Yeah, you're a customized specialist rep, but I think the better term, like you said, is a marketing department, because you're just trying to get awareness of it out to the reps or out to the agents that are actually going to be the boots on the ground.
Yeah, and we act as the regional managers for these companies too, for the rep agencies, and we're out making sales calls for them, training them, our partners' products, and managing those networks.
I mean, again, this is really fascinating because it's such a different model from what we currently have. So, I mean, let's say, for instance, I'm a lighting designer and I want to use your products. What is the starting place for a project that wants to use global lighting controls?
Well, it's not really using us, and we're not promoting Global Lighting Controls as a brand. We really are promoting the partner manufacturers, and so in one sense, it doesn't change from what they're used to. So, in a specific market, we may have 2 or 3 different rep firms in a market that have different partners that we represent, because we're not trying to always go to the same firm in every market and have them represent every part. We really do our homework and look and say, okay, this is the best fit for your products with this rep. They don't have direct competition for you. They have a need on their line card for you. We're really not trying to push the whole package on everybody. We're trying to find the best sales opportunity. So we're placing these companies with the best rep firms. Where we do package it together a little bit is on the national account side. So we have had great success with national accounts and doing a lot of retail accounts through the established national account distributors. And there we're free to say, okay, hey, we want to, we're going to talk about Energio controls, or we're going to talk about Illumipure, one of our manufacturers, or Illumra, and we can bring that all together to the same sales meeting in those cases.
So I just want to make sure that our listeners understand what we're talking about. Do you mind just giving us a quick definition on what national accounts refers to?
Yeah, absolutely. So really talking about mainly retail accounts, and there's developed here in the industry specialty distributors. The better name knowns are, Wiedenbach Brown. CED's got a great national account department. Graybar does. Capital Light. These companies specialize in providing lighting and lighting controls to national retailers, and they provide a lot of value in doing this, and that's actually where I got my start in the industry. I was originally when I was with LC&D for 9 years. I was the director of national accounts, so that was a natural place for us to go when we first started and marketing all our partner products and our control system to the national accounts.
So basically, I mean, looking at the rep model, usually there's regions that are broken up, territories for those reps, and that's a local account essentially. Whereas a national
Mhm.
account breaks past all of those barriers and just treats it as the country.
Yeah, and typically the local reps, aren't set up to handle a national account, aren't, and quite frankly, usually don't want to, because it's a
Mm.
very, very long sales cycle. You're usually dealing with specifiers in multiple states outside of their territory, and the majority of
Mm-hmm.
the locations are outside of their territory. So it's very hard for the local rep to kind of get involved in that. Once in a while, there'll be a rep that has a great relationship with a retail headquartered in their territory, and they can definitely bring some value there. But yeah, usually it's outside of the rep network, and it's done on more on a national basis through these distributors.
Right. So yeah, so from the national accounts perspective, yeah, you can kind of use your entire ecosystem at your disposal. But when you're at the
Hmm.
local rep level, that's when things might end up being piecemeal.
Yeah, and not really piecemeal, but we've got different. We've got lighting products, we've got control products, and like I said, we try and find the best rep for them. We're not trying to just say, okay, this is the global lighting and control package, and you have to take all of this, because it won't make sense for very many reps to do that. There's going to be too many conflicts with their line cards, and we
Right.
wouldn't be doing it, justice to our partners doing it that way either.
No, again, I think that is an interesting and unique way of approaching it because it, when you're looking at a North American lighting control manufacturer, they stick to one rep, and they don't like say, okay, well, this product line is going to be with this rep, but this product line is going to be with that rep.
Right.
And so you're used to getting reps who package projects. Whereas it sounds like you could end up with multiple reps on a single project for the lighting controls
It's
package.
not really, because it's um, again, because it would take us going to a specifier. I would love this to happen. Us going to a specifier and say, please design around all, 15 or so of our
Sure.
manufacturers, and everything in there is somebody that we partner with. So,
Mm.
I'd love for that to happen, but yeah, I don't see it. So, we're going to get on, we're going to have one manufacturer specified on this project here because that rep's strong with that specifier, and, a few other lines over here because this rep's strong with this other specifier. Is generally how it works. So,
Sure.
again, we really look, when we're looking for these reps, we're focused on our partner company who we're trying to place, and what's going to be best for them, what's going to facilitate sales the quickest for them, and be the
Mm.
best match for them as far as these reps go.
Yeah.
So how do you? I'm curious. How easy or how difficult is it for you to support local reps across the country?
It's kind of strange that it in one way it got easier because of COVID. Because we were kind of worried about that in the beginning. We started, perfect time to start a new business,
Mm.
right at the beginning of 2019. Right when the pandemic hit, and so suddenly, nobody could travel, nobody could do anything. So
Mm.
everybody got used to online meetings and doing things remote. And it wasn't something we had planned on. We thought we were all going to be on airplanes flying all over the place. And we are now. We've gotten back to it, but not to the extent like the industry was before. So, in one sense, that really helped. People are used to now doing meetings remotely. You don't have to, back when I started, used to have to, walk in with your binder and hand out literature. None of that's relevant anymore with the internet. Everybody be able to download everything. So it's made it much easier that way to support these reps. So we can do sales meetings, we can do training sessions online without all the travel that we had before. So we're able to do much more in a shorter amount of time.
How does that work with product? Like, so do you normally try to ship product to them and walk them through demos, or is that if there's product involved, you have to kind of consider traveling to them to assist?
A little of both. There's times that we'll definitely travel to some place because we want to bring in a specific fixture. We want to have it on the conference table and be able to demo what it is. Others, like you implied, where it may be some control components, maybe some override switches or some sensors or something like that. We'll ship those to the small devices. No sense us getting on an airplane just to carry those out. We'll ship them to them, let them wire it up, play with it. We have some great online, demos we can show with the cameras in our demo room showing things turning on and off and how these things work. So it's a little bit of mix of both, but yeah, it's not near to where it was before the pandemic, as far as, always having to lug a demo case through the airport and seeing multiple reps every week. So.
Sure. Yeah, and so from the rep perspective, anyways, do you leverage your reps as your integrators, or do you also kind of facilitate the training and expertise of like actual technicians?
It's a great question because that's one of the things we do. So we, on the control system side, and we've got a couple different control system platforms. We definitely will do the commissioning and the startup, and a lot of it we can even do remotely now over the internet. But we've also made that create a program where we will train the reps to do that as well. If they want to make that a profit center for themselves, we're more than happy to have them do that. And we've had several reps take us up on that, and have gotten trained on our systems, and we'll go out and do that. It's not really that they're the integrator; it's more that they're the commissioning agent, going out there and taking responsibility for that. And even on proprietary systems, from a single manufacturer, the reps are doing that now anyways, and the reps are taking responsibility for what they've sold. So it's kind of no different in that case. But yeah, we absolutely like to get those local reps involved and get them trained.
No, and I think that's the sound way to go. I mean, it does make it a little bit different from the DMX perspective, because DMX seems to be a little bit more in dealer territory than rep territory for the services. But I think if you're competing apples to apples with lighting control systems, I don't think theatrical and architectural overlap. So as a result, architectural really does need to be dealt with the same way that the rest of them are, with you doing the reps doing the services.
Yeah, exactly. Like I said, we're not trying to change the system at all. We're trying to work within it.
Right. Well, and again, the more I hear about this, the more sound it sounds to me, anyways. It really makes a lot of sense that this is the model you're following, and you're just kind of adapting it to a different breed of technology.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And one thing we do use the reps for, or I shouldn't say use the reps for, but we partner with the reps with is a lot of these controls now are wireless, and a lot of them really lend themselves to being embedded in the fixtures themselves. And that's another area that is much more prevalent in Europe than it is here. And we're just now starting this whole move towards luminaire level lighting controls. I'm not sure who came up with that long acronym, but one of the things we do and work real closely with our rep partners is having them make introductions for us to their fixture manufacturers, especially if we've got a big project involved where we're providing the controls, and we can go to these manufacturers and we can show them, hey, it would be much easier for everybody to go ahead and factory embed this control device in the fixtures. Show them all the advantages as far as commissioning, price, labor, how much easier it makes it for the rep as far as sales goes. And so we do partner with our manufacturers that way. And actually we even reward them, some finder's fees and things like that. So that's another way we're partnering with our rep partners as well.
Interesting. So if you could, look into the future and predict, where we're going to be with lighting controls in 5, 10 years. Do you
Hmm.
see this model taking precedence over what we currently have?
As far as the ecosystem stuff, yeah, because it's goes beyond just lighting, looking at lighting controls or the lighting industry.
Right.
Really, if you look ahead, uh, and I'm definitely not the first person to promote this. There's a lot of people promoting
Right.
using the lighting systems as the backbone of IoT. It's the only
Hmm.
thing in a building that is, has complete coverage across every section of a building and it has power at every point.
Yep.
So it just makes sense now to have those lighting fixtures not only, be a luminaire, but also have a device in there, a chip, a wireless chip in there that can not only provide the lighting controls, but also other information and be an interface for the rest of the IoT systems. Being able to share data between different
Right.
systems, whether it's the HVAC system or the security, fire alarm, whatever it may be. Being able to share sensors and just
Hmm.
especially all that data. So I think it will force the industry into this more ecosystem model because there's not going to be one company that's going to make all of those different products that are going to interface with the lighting systems now.
Right.
And so, that's really where I see the future going, and where lighting controls I think is going to go as far as the industry goes.
Well, and that agrees with at least our most recent interview as well with another
Hmm.
competitor lighting control manufacturer. But
Mhm.
they also were talking about exposing all of their information to the other systems so that they could communicate clearly. And so I think that right there is also the component that a lot of other systems might be missing, or at least not completely providing, which is open access to everything that they have information wise. So I think you're right. I think having that holistic mindset for building systems as opposed to just siloing lighting controls is really the way that the direction we're heading in. Whether it's going to happen tomorrow or in a few years doesn't really matter, but that is where everything's coursing towards.
Yeah, and one thing about it, and there's still going to be, in my opinion, there's not going to be one company that emerges that can just do everything in the building.
Hmm.
Uh,
Right.
there's nobody that's going to do great lighting controls, great access controls, great data management, all these different things that is the promise of the Internet of Things.
Right.
So it's going to be very important that all these different systems use open communication protocols.
Hmm.
But even more important is going to be better integration products
Hmm.
because
Right.
we're not going to get everything on a single communication platform. HVAC is still going to be dependent on BACnet. Lighting's going to be, and fortunately, in my opinion, it's not going to be Dolly. It's going to be more direct luminaire level control, but it's going to be different
Hmm.
communication protocols. So it's really going to take better integration platforms where we can, in the cloud, have two-way communication, have the translation between these protocols, have it almost instantaneous,
Hmm.
and really be able to do that way. And again, it leads to that ecosystem mentality of being able to select the right system for everything you need to do in the building. But ultimately, you want to have them all talking, sharing data, see it on one dashboard, have one interface.
So, looking into the future, because I agree with you, I think that's where we are heading. Looking into the future, how, who, what is responsible for making all those systems communicate and interpret that data and bring it into a central dashboard? Who is responsible for that? How does that happen?
It's a good question. Now, there's companies already that have the technology. Uh,
Hmm.
you know, one I'll name drop a little bit. One we really like is Mobius Flow. Um, but they're not on the whole project. They're not responsible for the whole project. They're responsible for that integration. So it
Right.
still gets back to having one kind of, I don't want to say master integrator, but maybe that is a good term, that is responsible for that whole IoT project that brings all these different companies together that provide, again, security and fire alarm and lighting controls and everything else together, and takes ownership and responsibility for it all.
Interesting. Have you seen any organizations or any companies out there that are trying to take those steps to sort of become that person or that entity?
Other than us, no, because we actually are we are actually working towards that. And we're in the very, very early stages of doing this. So I won't say we're out there doing major IoT projects right now. But I see companies trying to do parts of it. And I see mainly companies, though, that are trying to take on too much. They've come up with one great solution in one area, and then they try and also say, oh, I can also do this, this, and this. They really can't do this and this well. I think it's going to work out where we're get companies that need to stay in their silo, do what they're experts on, access control or lighting control or whatever it is. And I think there's a business opportunity there. I think there's a business opportunity for people to step up and start putting these kind of IoT packages together, and bringing all these solutions together. And much like we're doing with the individual partners in the lighting industry, be the responsible entity and where the buck stops. So I think there's definitely a business opportunity there, and I think that's ultimately where it's going to flesh out to, because I don't see any, even the really big guys, I'm not seeing them doing this, and again, they want to just sell only their own products. They're not wanting to sell ecosystem products anyways.
Well, so we're almost out of time here, but I kind of want to package what we've talked about here. It's fascinating stuff, and I'm really curious to see where this goes in the future, because the model is the same, but it's a unique application of the model. So in our industry in North America, we have rep agencies local to territories, and those reps represent specific manufacturers that take on the lighting controls for a project. What you're saying is that you have reps, but it's not that those reps are for everything that you have. They just take a little bit of, the right manufacturers for the territory that they have or the line card they have, so there's no competition. And they represent a product that's not necessarily the entire lighting control solution. It's more that this is an open option. It's following the European model of design for lighting controls, but it's not. You seem to disagree for a moment there.
Yes. So we've got products like, we have lighting products, lighting companies we represent, and so we'll contract with them. On the control side, we've got a sensor manufacturer, Dandlers. They make great standalone sensors. We'd love to find a rep just for those standalone sensors. But when it needs to be a system, we're actually selling it as a system. So we've got that Energeo Controls brand, where even though the parts and pieces are by several different manufacturers, it is a one single system. There's there's tech sheets, there's brochures. We're not asking those reps to be even aware of the parts and pieces or who the individual manufacturers are. We're not hiding who the manufacturers are at all. But to them, it feels like they're just buying a system from a single manufacturer. To them, it feels just like the way they've always done business.
Right, but in the reality behind the curtain, it is a mixture of manufacturers. You
Absolutely.
just are taking ownership of the system, and I'm using system loosely here because
ecosystem.
When we say system in the United States, anyways, we are saying this manufacturer, this brand, and yes, okay, we've got your brand technically, but it's really a brand of OEM brands, and so you're collecting all these systems together that work together. And they work together, but somebody who doesn't have the European design mindset wouldn't be able to make that evaluation quickly.
It's a learning curve right now in our industry. It absolutely is. Because we We market, quite frankly, and use some wireless operating systems that are being also marketed by other people.
Hmm.
And so it does get confusing. We're marketing them under the Energeo Controls brand, and we can actually we've got actually 4 different wireless mesh protocols that we can use, all with the same hardware. We choose which one to use based on the capabilities and the needs of the project. But it can be confusing, and it's going to take a learning curve for the industry to learn this.
Right. But yeah, so I mean, it's really fascinating because again, you're taking that rep model that exists, and
Mhm.
you're following every sales point through the process, so nobody ever needs to think about the fact that there's a variety of different things going on there, and you're
Yep.
holding the hands of everybody who has the question, like, wait a second, what's going on here? But as a result, you're not really shaking up the industry in any, you know, superficial way. You're shaking it up at the actual core level, which is where if I want something custom tailored, I want, this component to be instead of this component, that's really the ideal for lighting controls. I want to be able to pick my keypads from one manufacturer and have the sensors from a different manufacturer and have,
Exactly.
that's what you're providing, is that
Hmm.
foundation, but you're just following the model that North America has for sales.
Yeah, we want to change the product and the way we put these systems together. Yeah, not the industry as a whole and how we go to market.
Hmm.
Because as Ron said, there's no way we're going to change that. Whether you agree with it
Right.
or like the rep model or not, it's here to stay. So
Yep.
we need to find a way to work with it, not against it.
Yeah. No, it's fascinating stuff, and I'm really curious to see how it changes things, and hopefully we do see more competitors coming up. And I mean, not for your benefit, but for the benefit of the marketplace as a whole. I mean,
Actually,
you
we
know,
hope to see them too. It actually helps bring everybody up when there's competition.
Sure.
So we're happy to see them out there.
well, good.
Interesting.
Well, thank you. Yeah,
I have one
go
more
ahead.
follow up. I got one more.
Yeah.
So it's just my brain's been wheels are spinning, hamster wheels going. So just based on the conversation we had last week, and any of our listeners who were listening to that one, and then today's, and really talking about sharing data and making that available.
Mhm.
Based on your last response about who's responsible ultimately for bringing that to a single dashboard, it made me realize maybe it's not someone as an integrator per se, right? You have your lighting integrator, you have your HVAC integrator, you have your
Mhm.
security, and you've got a overall, let's call them commissioning agent, that is basically the quarterback for all these systems to bring it to that central dashboard, right? And maybe that's the model, right? I mean, how does that feel like something
I,
that
I, I
we
agree with
could
you.
see?
I agree with you. Yeah, whatever you want to call it, with master integrator or commissioning agent or whatever.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think
yeah.
there's definitely a growing business model there for somebody to take that role.
Fascinating. It's amazing. I love this industry. There's so many things changing. It's so great. Like,
it,
I love it. And
it is
the
dynamic and
idea
it is
that
fun. Yeah.
yeah, and the idea that you're able to sort of shake things up without shaking things up, and is a it's a very cool way to do it. And I really appreciate the way you're going about it, and no, understanding you're not going to get around the rep network, so let's work with it
Yeah.
and not fight against it. And I think it's great, and hopefully you're right. Hopefully we do see some more competition, and some other people out there realize and see this model and say, hey, there's a way here, and that'll allow us to start to leverage some of these larger ecosystems, right? And leverage what's being
Mhm.
done in other countries and not being done here currently. And hopefully open the eyes of some of the manufacturers here so that they start seeing this and start trying to share and play nice with each other, and everyone realizes that the sandbox is plenty big enough for everyone.
Well,
So
I'll leave you with one last thing is that, when the mechanical side, really kind of adopted BACnet as their de facto standard, it didn't kill
mhm,
off any companies. It didn't stifle
right,
competition. It didn't hurt anybody. So yeah, I agree
right.
with you. Hopefully our big conglomerates will start learning that lesson too.
I love it. MJ, thank you so much, man. Really appreciate your time. It's been a great conversation. And before we close, I just want to remind everyone that today's episode is presented by the LCA, the Lighting Controls Association.
And it's financially supported by the National Association of Innovative Lighting Distributors. Also, check out our website for all of our other episodes. Check it out for news feeds as well as the merch store if you want to support the podcast. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us here today. And MJ, again, thank you so much. This was a really interesting conversation.
Thank you, guys. I enjoyed it.